Our potentials as pharmacists are yet to reach its fullness. And today, we are here to discuss what regulation can do to help us solve the persistent problems that we face in healthcare and in pharmacy practice. So before we proceed, I would like to introduce our chairperson for this occasion. So our chairperson is an astute pharmacist. He has about over 13 years of experience, and he's currently please give me a moment, I'm just missing a few information. Okay, he has about 13 years of experience. He's currently the Vice President of the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana. It's no wonder he's here because we are going to be talking about the importance of PSGH. He's also with Johnson & Johnson as the Director for Government Affairs and Policy with responsibility for East Africa region. He's currently the chairperson for the Advisory Committee of Ghana's e-pharmacy program. With a big round of applause, help me welcome Mr. Kwabena Asante. Mr. Kwabena, your audience, your chairman.
Hello, colleague. Good afternoon. So, I was expecting that a lot of people will be interested in this session on regulation. I went to see the job creation one, and it's full. So it looks like people want to get their jobs in place before we come and think about regulation. Yeah. But I think this is important because increasingly we are realizing that a lot of the things that we do in pharmacy, whether they would move forward or not, depends so much on the regulatory environment. And we have had over the past few years serious conversations with the regulator of the profession, Pharmacy Council, in terms of licensing and all the things that we have to do, training, on the numbers, and all that. So increasingly they have to be very important. Now in this session, the planning committee had advised that they deliberately decided that the Pharmacy Council should not be part of this session. And the reason is that we want to be able to come up with the things that we think that we should be focusing on with the council, without the council being here to kind of defend the status quo and all that. Then GB and SEC will then, after the AGM, engage the Pharmacy Council separately on those things. Or even we'll take the learnings from here to business session 2 tomorrow, and then from there we'll take it on. So if you don't see Pharmacy Council here, it is deliberate. But please let us also not shy away from the things that we think the council should be dealing with. So that's on the Pharmacy Council side. But we are happy to have our other regulator, the Food and Drugs Authority, here. We also have another consultant here. I'll leave that for the moderator to introduce. But I promise I'm encouraging all of us to be just classy, say whatever you like. There's freedom of speech. Just be polite about it, that's all. But say whatever it is that you like. You are welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to invite you over to the high table until the speakers join you. Thank you very much. But then following up, the chairman cannot be alone on his high table, so I'm going to be introducing the speakers next. Our very next able speaker is also a pharmacist. He schooled in the University of Technology, and went to further in the UK. He has over 20 years experience as a pharmacist, and he's also been working in regulatory for more than 17 years before he joined the Food and Drugs Authority. With With a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. Samuel Asante Boateng, our first speaker for the day. Hello. Okay. Our next speaker is also another very able pharmacist. Today we have a collection of very knowledgeable and experienced pharmacists on the high table. Another also very knowledgeable person. He has a history in public health practice with experience in pharmacy practice regulation from 1997 to 2005 in the malaria program management, and he's currently in the global health security agenda. He has had so many awards in the Ashanti Anglo Gold Malaria Control Program for 5 years. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. Farm Sylvester Sengbanyo. I'm sorry. You're welcome to the high table. Now, I'm going to introduce our moderator for this session. He is a very able, another pharmacist, and he has over 17 years of working experience in the pharmaceutical industry of Ghana. He obtained his bachelor degree in tech, just like one of our speakers, and he also holds a master's in business administration from the University of Applied Management, Germany. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. Vincent Owusu Ansong as a moderator of this session. You're welcome. Without much ado, time is already fast spent. I will hand over the mic to our moderator to begin the session right away. I hope that we will all be attentive, and we will learn as much as we can from this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Latifa. Thank you very much. You have a year or two post first degree. How many years? 2, eh? And I'm really happy at least you have the confidence to stand in front of this big crowd of colleagues. And thank you very much. I want to also appreciate all of us here for being in this session. Like lawyer said, this should have been the heavily attended session. But it looks like they want to get a job before they come here, right? It's so strange. It's strange. I mean, it's illegal. Know the ethics, then you can at least practice right. But the job pays the bills. Right, thank you very much. So we will receive a brief presentation from our speakers, and then we'll start talking. And like I said, we should be very open and share our ideas. Eventually, it's geared towards helping our profession become better. Thank you very much. So we'll take a first session from Sylvester. You want to share with us some ideas, and then we'll take from Mr. Santa Martin following. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just like there's a feedback.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor and privilege to participate in this discussion. With your kind permission, can I sit? I think it will be more relaxed that way. Okay, great, thanks. So, my correct name is Sylvester Segbaya. I noticed that is wrongly spelled in the brochure. Yeah, so just for the records, I think we still have a bit of a feedback. Right, and I'm not too sure why I was asked to participate in this session, but I have a history in pharmacy regulations, specifically working with the Ghana Pharmacy Council. It was actually my very first job right after school, so from 97 right through till 2005. I worked in the Western Central region, then I did Ashanti region, responsible for Brown Hafo, a little stint in Eastern Volta, then came back to Accra to do education and training. So I think that experience gives me some insight into what happens when it comes to pharmacy regulation in Ghana. And from the books, I think that basically regulation aims at guaranteeing client safety, ensuring professionalism and ethical behavior, and I think that those are the main drivers when it comes to pharmacy practice regulation. That said, we all appreciate the fact that we are practicing pharmacy in a not so ideal environment, in a third world country where regulation has its own challenges. You need to look at what is realistically practicable and what is not. So I wish I could talk about all the beautiful things that Professor Uto talked about yesterday during the debate. The reality is that we are faced with a number of challenges. So in my attempt to prepare for this meeting, I put out a very short survey. I'm sure some of you may have seen it, others may not. And I got responses from about 71 people. Interestingly, I had a good balance. So no, when I checked, it was 74, and it was 50 females. No, sorry. What would that be? You divide 70, 35. No, 37. So I had a good balance when it came to gender. But I noticed that most people were into community practice. I think about 70% of the respondents were into community practice. The first question I asked is, what are some of the things they are happy the Pharmacy Council is doing? And I will just read out the most recurrent responses that I got. And I was quite excited to see that people appreciate the council first for the professions regulation. So one, people were happy that there's licensure for the pharmacists and there is the demand to renew your license every year. Quite a number of the respondents mentioned that. Then they are also happy about continuous professional development. They thought CPD was a great thing. Somebody wrote about providing rates for service. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to check whether the council really does that. And I presume the person was talking about setting a base salary rate for payments of pharmacists. And maybe I'll have to learn here, but that was one of the responses. And when it comes to the pharmacy, or let's say pharmacy practice regulation, i.e. community pharmacies, etc. This is what respondents had to say. People were happy that there is registration of pharmacies and also allied service providers, and then they were happy about the fact that there's an annual relicensure. They also mentioned that they are happy that the Pharmacy Council ensures that there is a superintendent pharmacist in the facility once the facility is open. I presume that from an ideal point of view, the council prescribes that requirement, and they were happy that it was one of the requirements. Then they indicated that they were pleased to have inspection of facilities going on, and that the Pharmacy Council, and I'll read this verbatim, so the person said that easily accessible pharmacies to meet pharmaceutical needs of the population, provide counseling for minor ailments, thus helping patients with some of their healthcare needs. So the person is happy that pharmacies are licensed and they are made easily accessible to the population. Then two people highlighted something that I thought was innovation and adaptability. The first thing was remote re-registration, and I'm assuming here that the person was referring to your ability to re-register as a pharmacist just sitting in your office, going online and filling a form. This other point, I'm not sure if I fully understood. The person said collection of dues. When I worked at the Pharmacy Council, we used to collect dues for the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana. I don't know whether that still happens. If that happens, probably the person was happy with that. So that's... Now, there were two things that I put in bold, and I'll read them. So one person said that the Pharmacy Council is raising the highest standards of pharmaceutical care in the country. And the second person said that they have recently closed down some shops in the Ashanti region for not meeting all the regulatory requirements. And I thought that was commendable, that at least there's something that makes us smile when we think about the Pharmacy Council. Usually you hear all the negatives, but the responses gave me an indication that quite a number of people were happy with at least one thing that the Pharmacy Council does that looked great. Now, there was a question about what people were not happy about, and I got quite a tall list. I will just skim through very quickly. One, people thought that the delay in renewal of licenses was a big issue, and that it took more than 6 months to get your license. I don't know whether it's a pharmacy retail license or the wholesale license back. And when I saw it, I was like, this dates way back, 15 years and over. Then they were also concerned about the littering of over-the-counter medicine vendors all over the place. They were concerned about undue competition from these vendors, and people actually articulated that they wanted the outlets closed down. Someone made a recommendation that they should be given time to upgrade into pharmacies, and I'm sure these are all conversations we'll have as we move along. Okay, thank you. And then one person indicated that they want to see the council enforce the 400-meter rule. Another person said if the 400-meter rule no longer applies, the council should make known what parameters they are using in issuing licenses to community pharmacy practice. Someone was very exact with what they wanted. Stop registration of license or the registration of chemical sellers in Ghana, and retail business must be owned by pharmacists only. Then someone wanted the council to ensure the presence of pharmacists wherever they were required, and that pharmacists should be present in the facilities whenever the facilities were open to the public. And the last point I'll just highlight here is that they wanted licenses to be issued out within 90 days after they had been applied for. So these are just a few. The responses were quite detailed, but I think I've listed, let's say, the top 10 of each category. Now, the question I was asking myself is, right, these are expectations of the Pharmacy Council, and you and I know what the Pharmacy Act clearly prescribes, and I'll just take the pains to read it so that we will all refresh our memory as far as the mandate of the Pharmacy Council is. Then we can delve into the conversation of whether we are satisfied with the extent to which the council is delivering on its mandate or not. So the act indicates that the council shall be responsible for securing in the public interest the highest standards in the practice of pharmacy, and without prejudice to subsection 1, that it shall ensure that courses of study and training in pharmacy at any institution in Ghana guarantee the necessary knowledge and skills needed for the efficient practice of pharmacy, then they're supposed to determine in consultation with the appropriate educational institutions courses of instruction and practical training for pharmacy students, and prescribe standards for professional conduct, exercise disciplinary power over pharmacists, uphold and enforce professional standards through the disciplinary powers conferred on it, keep a register of duly qualified and practicing pharmacists, and regulate the distribution of pharmacies in the country. Hello. Okay. Right. So that's what the Act prescribes. So the council actually has responsibility for determining the quality of training that is given to students in the university to come out and qualify as registered, or to qualify to then register as a pharmacist. And then it has the mandate also to ensure that there is discipline in our execution of our duties as pharmacists. Now the question is, how are we doing generally? And is there anything more that the council can do to improve the quality of service? I'll start by indicating that everybody is in the profession for a number of reasons, including paying your bills. And I must indicate that generally, as a country, pharmacists are very poorly remunerated in this country. And Ghana does not stand isolated. I think across a number of African countries, the same applies. So I was excited to hear that the society, together with other players, were actually fighting to determine a certain minimum rate. And it was interesting to hear the debate yesterday as to whether a pharmacy can pay 2 pharmacists, etc. Now, it's important to appreciate the fact that in employing a professional, there is the need to satisfy the basic requirements that will enable the professional deliver on his or her duties appropriately and satisfactorily. We've had a big challenge of pharmacists over the years registering for community pharmacies or maybe even wholesale outlets, hanging their licenses, never stepping there. At the time I worked at the council, some people were hauled before either the general purpose committee or the disciplinary committee because they were reported to have taken a 1-year advance and never stepped foot in the outlets. Now, obviously, these are not ethical behavior and they call for disciplinary action. But there have also been situations where there were facilities that were running without pharmacists because they claimed they were not making enough sales. The question is, should you be open to the public? Does the law permit you? You and I know the answer. So there is an expectation of practitioners or pharmacists that the council will ensure that a certain sound environment is created for us to be able to practice efficiently and effectively. Let me ask this other question. Do we have too many pharmacies, maybe in specific areas, and little or no pharmacies in other places? The answer is obvious, yes. You go to Accra, you go to Kumasi, there are pharmacies almost every 400 meters away from each other. If you get into Wa, Bolga, Navrongo, you'll find 1 or 2. Maybe I haven't checked lately, but I think Wa probably has about 5 or more now. Same for Bolga. But we have a very skewed distribution, and that calls for a certain review of what is happening within the practice. is regulation positioned in such a way that it can facilitate a redistribution of pharmacies and, for that matter, pharmacists across the country? Will there be new conditions and new terms made or created for pharmacists that would opt to go into a district so that they do not just have a single oversight over one facility, or but rather provide oversight for multiple facilities? Are there any other regulatory mandates they can be granted whilst practicing in a district hospital, for instance, and being told that you are the district pharmacist, and for that reason, or for that matter, you can also make sure, or you must also make sure, that there is proper pharmaceutical care delivery within this district, and you get rewarded or enrated appropriately for that added service that you are providing? I will just want to pause here because I've raised a lot of questions and I haven't touched on a quarter of the issues as far as Pharmacy Council is concerned. But I'll pause here so that I'll allow my colleague to also articulate issues from the other end of regulation. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sylvester. And please, the media team, can we get an extra mic here, please? So whilst the mic comes in, we will hand over to our senior, Mr. Santiboatin. We always call him a copy. Yes, to share with us his talks. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vincent.
Hello.
I think this is very interesting. This AGM is too close. Yes, I think this AGM has really come with another dimension where at least
that one is almost dead.
Where at least we have designed the program such that we will be able to look at the challenges that confront us and see how best we can actually resolve it. And you can see that all the stakeholders involved in what we do as a profession are all situated within us or amongst us, and therefore it becomes very important for this to happen. Some years back, I worked in the industry for about 12 years. And I quite remember on one occasion, we were thinking about trying to make sure that we have a lot of pharmacists working amongst us to ensure that consistently you can always manufacture a quality and safe product. And so we wrote to Pharmacy Council, the then Pharmacy Board, requested for 10 service personnel as at the time. The first instance, that was in 1999, they were able to give us about 4. It was less than 3 months, they all left once again. So the following year, the year 2000, we still applied, and this time we had 6. Also within 3 months, they all left. And so we took it upon ourselves to visit the pharmacy board, the then pharmacy board, to ask what the reasons are why the service people they post to our place do not really want to stay. Apparently, they were complaining about the time that we close. They want to go and do locum. If they are at the hospital, they will close at 1 o'clock, can do a locum 2 to 6, and maybe move to another place and do another locum and get some more money. But at the industry, you realize that if you are a line supervisor, you may even have to extend. Even though you have to work from 8 to 5, you have to extend your working hours because you are doing something that has not ended. And therefore, you may leave up to about 6 p.m. in the day. And so these were challenges that we realized was actually confronting our colleague pharmacists who have just graduated and they have even started the service and they are taking too much about some of these things. Now, as we speak, if we look at the number of industries that we don't have much, but the number of pharmacies within these facilities are not even up to the number of industries that we have. So that tells you that there's a big gap, and the gap is either that people are not that much interested to take a bite of what happens in the industry. Now, they may also talk about remuneration. Well, that one is another thing that we can actually discuss. Now, the issues confronting us is that we have whooping number of our colleagues coming out of school. And like somebody said yesterday, which was very, very important and well said, that we are all crowded at the ground floor. Nobody is moving to the next level. It is either our people do not actually know where the stair area is to go to another level, to also assess the other opportunities that are there. And therefore, it means that we need to collaborate adequately well, and then give them where the roots are for them to build or psych themselves, so that they will actually be able to move into some of these practice areas. Now, because we want to look at how regulation can help absorb some of these our colleagues that are all stuck down at the ground floor, the FDA Ghana, like I said yesterday, if you look at the Public Health Act that mandates us to do what we do, we have the Part 6 for tobacco and tobacco products control, 7 for food and drugs, and then 8 for clinical trial oversight. And all these areas, we have pharmacists that can work there. It is also important to put at the back of our minds that the main mandate or the main object of the work given to the FDA is to protect public health and safety. And therefore, all guidelines and all that has actually been developed are geared towards ensuring that we can make sure that the public, who you and I are part of it, will be very safe. And therefore, there's some limits to what we can do. But if you look at the Part 7 of the Public Health Act, Section 147 and 148, we are supposed to advise the minister and take certain decisions, which of course, we have almost always done that in favor of work that our colleagues can always do. We can also develop guidance documents, guidelines and all that, which are also enforceable because the law mandates us to do that, and that should be implementable. Now, if you look at all this, you realize that we have started from somewhere. Now we have put in place a system where all marketing authorization holders are supposed to have qualified persons for pharmacovigilance. And these are work that are also available for people to apply for with all the marketing authorization holders that we have. And depending on the number of products that are on the market or that is being exported into the country by people, they need to have more than 1 or 2 of such people. Now, to get the requisite skills to do that work, and for the reason why the FDA always places value on the work that the pharmacists can do, we have put in place, in collaboration with WHO, a training program to equip the pharmacists who can act as the pharmacovigilance person for the MAH or market authorization holder. Now, even though this does not come for a free, importers and MAH tries to pay monies to at least train some of our colleagues. But most of our colleagues don't like it. And therefore, you still get allied sciences areas who are being brought in, some people who are did biochemistry, chemistry and all that, to come for those trainings so that they can act as QPPV for them. Now, the work has actually been done such that we have a whole department within a directorate that visits and conducts what we call pharmacovigilance inspection. And when you go there, they are expecting to see a pharmacist there, and then the work that you have done based on products that have actually been imported into the country, notes that you have taken, because the idea is that you need to be on top of the products you have brought in, and you are supposed to monitor the progress of your products on the market. You monitor such that if there are any adverse events, is reported, and then you take necessary steps to see how that can actually be improved. Now, if we talk to people who are the other side, they will tell you that once the people are trained, it is normally valid for about 3 years. Within a year, they file to move to another company. And so then the companies are thinking, if we pay and they are moving, it becomes difficult. And that is why they still keep on bringing in the allied science areas to train them rather. For them, you realize that they know they also have a similar challenge about the areas where they will have opportunities to work. And therefore, they work diligently. But to the regulator, you realize that if you have somebody who has actually been trained to be on top of issues concerning medicines, then of course you always think about the pharmacist. But if this is continuously happening, and we are talking about people who are also doing the same business, in order to build the business in here, we have always said that you cannot be an outsider or a foreigner and come and do business in Ghana. And therefore, you will need a local agent to work with, and it's a requirement. This is to build the capacity of the local agents who runs pharmacies, wholesales and all that, at least to also employ people to also do the work. Now, once they even employ, you realize that people have imported the products, they need to do distribution. As part of a requirement, you need to have been registered as an importer with the FDA. And that we have insisted. It doesn't go with any money. But the storage area where the product will be stored is paramount. And that is what is actually licensed before you are giving in as an importer. Now, the storage facilities that we are looking at, it depends on the range of products that you want to bring in. If you have cold storage products, we need to ensure that you have a transport that can convey it once the product comes into the country. It has to be in the right condition as per the manufacturer's recommendation. You transport it adequately well. You put it in your cold storage so that you don't break the cold chain. This will be better understood if we have our colleagues there. If you bring other people, they don't mind. If it comes, it can be on the outside of the facility, waiting for several hours before it is taken into a cold chain. They don't know that once a cold chain is broken, whatever you do afterwards, if it's a breakdown of the product or whatever, the breakdown products are already there. And so the duty to make sure that the pharmacist gets some work to do is already enshrined in the work that the FDA actually does. Now, we have not even ended there. We have, as part of the requirement, to have what we call qualified persons. Now that we have these issues, it brings to bear that once we have our colleagues who will be interested in moving into some of these manufacturing units and all that, we need to ensure that that is done. It's already there. We need to just implement it. Now, if you want to implement, they will go for this biochemists and chemistry and all that people for now. And therefore, to curb the issue that we are now discussing, it will mean the willingness of our colleagues to take job opportunities once it is created and is available. That is very important. Now, the guideline is saying that every manufacturer should have a line manager, a qualified person who can supervise the manufacture and also cause the release of the product onto the market. But if we don't have our people, well, they are not that interested, people will still, because we are insisting on making it mandatory, they will get the people. And if you look at the WHO guidelines, which is international and is a minimum requirement, is that for such industries, you can also employ the other biochemists or chemistry, provided they have done about 4 or 5 years work within the area, and then they can be trained actually to do that. And so moving forward, it means that we need to ensure that our people are aware of what goes on in the industry, and they will be willing to take up opportunities once they avail themselves. Now, in order to make sure that our industries don't collapse, that is why the FDA also supports the policy of this restriction from its inception, from 1989 or 1990, where we used to have only 16 products with chloroquine and other things as part of those medications. And we have realized that chloroquine has gone off, it has been banned, and a new molecule introduced. And so it was prudent that there should be a revision of that list. And this is to at least protect the local industry to have some level of market to operate. Once they are able to operate and it's okay, they keep on employing, and we also insist that they have our professionals manning all the various lines, because you get a facility, they are doing tablets, they are doing capsules, they are doing syrups and all that. Quality control, now we have managed to make it mandatory for separation of quality control and quality assurance. But all these areas, you will still get allied sciences occupying those positions. So really, we need our people to be aware of what is there. Maybe the one that I told you about was too late in the 90s and early 2000. But now, if we are having increasing numbers, it means that we need to either partner the PSGH to at least collaborate, do some work that can allow our young graduates to understand what is ahead of them, for those who have interest to at least enjoy those positions. So we can really use regulation we have already, we just need to implement. But are people willing to accept and work in the industry? That is another point. Now, in order to still make sure that we are still not lost in the field of pharmacy, and we are also manufacturing pharmaceutical products, and if you know the history of how the pharmaceutical companies came into being in Ghana, you understand it. That in the past, when the government of Ghana got some funding from Germany, they had a facility built up, and it was named after GIHOC, which is Ghana Industrial Holding Company. Initially, it was corporation, and they were supposed to even manufacture to feed the whole Africa. They had a very wide range, big, with all the equipment to do what they need to do, including injectables. Along the line, they realized that the company was failing. And because of that, they realized they needed private participation. And therefore, people who had facilities anywhere were allowed to also come in to ensure that we don't go off and be fully dependent on imported products. And so people started. So residential facilities were converted, some bought machines, and they were all operating. Now things have been modernized. It became prudent. The FDA sat down to say, if we want to sit in this, it will come to a point where we cannot be internationally recognized. And therefore, let us draw up a roadmap for our industries to improve, make things better. Their goods can travel internationally for sales, because if you look at our surrounding countries, especially the Francophones, they were heavily dependent on France, and therefore they were not manufacturing. And as of now, there are certain countries there's not even any single manufacturing going on. And so they would depend on the sub-region, of course, to buy. And so let's put up this roadmap for people within the period of 5 years, modify or move from where they are now to light industrial area or industrial areas which will certainly be approved by the EPA, because it will litter or create safety hazards for the environment within which they were doing the manufacture. And if you can call your minds back, 2015 or so, some residents at the Kaneshi area went to report. By that time, there was an expansion going on by one of our companies, and then they caused the EPA to go and close them down based on the facility and the extensions they were doing. Why? Why? Because once they realize that you have done some washing and your effluent you are not treating, it gets there, they hear the fragrance and they think that these are dangerous chemicals. And so we said, no, let us take an initiative. We did the first one, it didn't work too much. The second one, government decided to support our industry. And when government decided to support, we gave them another moratorium that you operate within 5 years, by which time you should have actually moved. And that actually ended in 2020. Now, we have a couple of them moving out, and you can see some moving out and putting on very nice facilities that can be fit products that can actually be exported. If the companies are able to export, it means more business. They need to expand. They need to run either a double shift or a 3 shift or 24-hour manufacture. And this will certainly absorb our colleagues if they are willing to work in that particular environment. We have also done for the products that we used to say they were extemporaneous. We realized that they were no longer extemporaneously prepared and used. And you could see that they have been labeled and put in our various shops. And therefore, why don't we put them under regulation? Putting them under regulation will mean that we classify them under a small-scale manufacture. Now, you realize that our own colleagues, for those who are doing even the extemporaneous, they are giving non-pharmacists who thinks they can put things together to produce something to be producing under their labels. And therefore I said, no, we need to see your facility, inspect it and approve it for you to do that small scale. Now, to do the small scale, we are giving you a certain range of products, those ones which were classified initial extemporaneous, for you to start doing that type of manufacture, so that we can weed out the non-pharmacists who are doing their own thing in various corners. And so this we have done. But still, our colleagues are still giving their pharmacies out for people to prepare preparations under their names. We are still talking about increasing numbers coming out of the school. We don't need to do otherwise than along the line maybe to think about exporting some of our colleagues to work elsewhere. I think it can even work better. So regulation is there. We don't dispute that. Now we have a lot of challenges that we think if we have the inclusion of pharmacists will help. But along the line, you also see our senior colleagues, even in the field, committing the same errors. Now, even though we have said that if anybody wants to import, he has to do so through a local agent who must be a wholesaler, so that once you import, you can dispense by wholesaling. The documents will come to our people. They will receive it all right. They will just come and pay the fees and do the submission. Later on, when you go through it, you realize that the person who even did the submission, the name is not captured anywhere as a local agent or even an importer or whatever. Then you have to call them. So it means that it is either the interest is not there, but we have regulatory affairs managers. What are they doing? Are they technical enough, and have they been permitted to do due diligence once these documents are submitted? And invariably, we have a lot of issues that has ended up in courts, where you think that you have paid the fees and everything, and you have to be the MAH or the marketing authorization holder, and the FDA has captured it as you being a local agent, and the fact that the MAH holds the authority on the product and can decide to do anything about that product. So if you just take the documents and come and submit, the person there wants to cheat you. He will want you to pay the money, all right, and even pay for an inspection fee. But he will prepare the documents such that the product belongs to him or her. And you didn't check, you have just come to submit. And it didn't happen to 1, 2, 3 people. Over 10 companies. You had to call them to ask them, are you the applicant, local agent, or what? Because these documents, this is what is captured. In some cases, you will be told that you leave it like that. It will travel to a point. The marketing authorization holder can do any variation on his product. We have a lot of things that can be varied on a product that has actually been registered. Some being either to change the site of manufacture or to even change the local agent or the importer. And all these are there to allow the MAH to make progress in some of the products that they have put on the market. So I think we need, the job is there. Whatever regulator has to do, we are doing. But like I said, we are for quality, safety, and efficacy. And therefore, if you insist on something that is actually not captured, anybody at all can take you on. But the ones we have even instituted is well enough to absorb some of our colleagues if they so desire. And therefore, I think that we can do more discussions. Some of us, we have employees with us, and some of them can tell you that if you take somebody who is a biochemist, very dedicated, some have worked 10 years, 20 years, and they are still there. When I came, I met somebody who has been with one company in Accra over 20 years. And the person is not a pharmacist, but they came to exhibit, and that is why the person is here. So I think regulation is there. We have done a lot of things. Because of the profession, the FDA has gone ahead to have a whole directorate that is for capacity building and strengthening. And once people are willing to do that, we can have a collaboration anywhere. Even if the schools will want us to have some sections where the students, after maybe the 4 years, whether entering the 5th year, they can branch into certain areas. We have a lot of colleagues who are well qualified and can also deliver. Now we have also at the FDA encouraged people doing PhDs, and therefore we have some graduating, and we have a lot of them there. And therefore, for us to give an insight into regulatory affairs and all that, that collaboration can always be there. And that can entice our people. The only problem there is whether they will be willing to put that in their heads to work in that area. Once they are seeing people riding in cars, being paying dollars, medical reps. I quite remember when we finished school, we had some colleagues, they were working with Johnson and all that. But we decided to work in the industry. Yes, so once we come for any AGM, they'll be riding their nice cars and all that. But we were not perturbed. I mean, we were thinking that industry is the way to go. But as I speak to you, we have less pharmacists in the industry that we are talking about. And I can tell you, a lot of opportunities are there. We can insist on a lot of things that we have in the guidelines and the law, but it will always go wayward. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much. That was a mouthful, a real mouthful. In fact, I actually lost track. I kept dropping the points on my phone. There was so much. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time. What I would do is that I have just a number of questions here. I'm going to throw them back to Mr. Asante Boati, and then we'll get back to our audience to take feedback as well. So we will come back to you because you just ended your session. Now, when I was with the Chamber of Pharmacy, I want to start from your house, your home. FDA, your compensation structure, your remuneration is really low compared to other employees in the industry. And we feel that most of our colleagues are also working at the FDA. The Chamber of Pharmacy tried to do an advocacy where you can achieve or attain your autonomy. So that based on that, you can pay your people very well. Then the act of regulation can be done and done thoroughly without looking back that, somebody may have an issue with me or that. What's your thought on that? Is this still something that we can do to help you as in PSGH and maybe Chamber working together to advocate for your autonomy? So you can pay your people very well, and then moving from there, you can also employ most of our colleagues. That's only the very first question.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm very much aware of what you are speaking about, and we working at the FDA will like it. We actually did a lot of work to show that we can be autonomous and self-sustaining. But you have a mother agency there, and they will not allow you to go, because eventually whatever is being generated as IGF goes into a certain fund, and by law we are mandated to take a certain percentage. Now once the year goes to an end, the money is gone until you start another session. And so for us, we think, and we have done a lot of work, if that can be done, we will be happy. And we are still holding on to realizing that, because we have done all justifications for us to be autonomous so that we can really employ more. As we speak, we are already in the 10 regions, and efforts are being made to move to the other 6 which have actually been created. And certainly we need people, but where are the people? I quite remember it is only recently we have requested for a lot of pharmacists, those who come for interviews. We have few ladies now joining. No male. Now, I will not say that it is bad to have pharmacist ladies, but once you have them with their younger, they are coming up with their maternity leaves here and there and all that, so if there's a balance, it's better. But then of course yeah, so it's something that is welcomed if it can be done. Thank you.
Can I just chip in? Yeah, and I just want to add to that point the fact that it's very important for regulatory institutions to be autonomous. It frees them from unnecessary influence from the powers that be. It also gives them the power to do the work they have to do and do it very independently. The interesting thing is that all our regulatory bodies generate sufficient revenue to be autonomous. And so maybe one of the things that as society we should embark on is a strong advocacy to push for the regulatory institutions that govern pharmacy practice to gradually gravitate towards becoming autonomous, because that is going to change a lot in the pharmaceutical sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's something that advocacy can really cause a massive change. So you have your go ahead now. We could discuss and to look how we can take it forward moving on. I want to come back to you again on your research. You had colleagues come to work with you at the FDA to be delivered into the manufacturing companies, but their numbers dwindled over time because they preferred to have, be in the MOH and also have the chance to do locum. Now, beyond that, what do you think is making our colleagues not have interest in the production jobs? Because I feel that's where the numbers are, and I'm sure there should be very good payment structure also over there. What's really happening? Why are people not having interest in that place? I mean, beyond the local bit.
Well, I believe that I quite remember during our time at the university, what were we having? One single tableting machine, single punch. That's what we used to have. I don't know over the years whether it got broken or not. But the interest will have to be built once they are young and they are coming up. So they develop the interest. Once they come out, if you have 20 students coming out with that interest, let us assume some will fade out. At least you get half of them, at least still maintaining their course of working in an industry. That will be there. But if remuneration increases, that can entice them the more, from what I can see. And therefore we need to maybe partner the pharmacy council, the universities, to ensure that this bit or the other aspects, because we can have regulatory affairs, we can still have people in production. And this afternoon when we met at the IPA, I was just telling them we are talking about vaccine manufacturing coming up, but not until we try to roll up a program that should be well sponsored. The university should be aware to have a 3-4 month certificate course in biotechnology. We will be joking. Thank you.
Thank you. So then how should we start the discussion? I mean, knowing what you know now, I mean, who should we pull on the table to start the talking? What should be the steps from here? I don't know what you think. There should be a program. What will you advise?
Currently, if you look at the project timelines that I have seen, it means that sooner than the word, the bulk manufacture will start from Rwanda. It will come for field seal in Ghana. Now, if people are even enticed to move in there, it will be the next about 18 months. Now, what they want to do is to use biocontainers. It is not that they are going to do full construction from the scratch. And therefore, it can just be exported from Germany, who are part of the deal, sponsoring part of the vaccine manufacture project in Ghana. What we need to do, like I said, the society is now concerned about the increasing numbers. And so they can have access to their members. Then we are going to now collaborate with the council, who is part of the regulation, and the university to fashion out something for those who will be interested to move into that. Now, we should not wait until the opportunity is there before we go and build the capacity. We need to build some now if you want to be a vaccine manufacturing hub, in addition to the allopathic that we're already doing. What is interesting for us to note is that even with allopathic, people are not interested. I'm wondering whether, but I think that is something for us to ponder. Thank you.
Okay, again, if I may just intercept. So once he talked about Rwanda, I thought we should throw in the issue of AFTA. And we are very much aware that Rwanda has just been selected as the country to host the Secretariat for the African Medicines Authority. And that has implications for the regulation of pharmaceutical trade going forward. Of course, AFTA produces a great opportunity for us to diversify, source active ingredients, do bigger business within the continent. But I always say it with a bit of trepidation, because I've been waiting for ECU for the last 15 years and we still don't have there. But it looks like they're moving quite fast on that front. Now, we need to begin to reflect on how we're going to take advantage of the continental free trade opportunity that is coming. And we need to strategize as first a society and then as a country. I mean, because the society must actually document an approach or a strategy that we want to use to optimize the benefits that AFTA is offering. So this will be my simple recommendation, that the society puts together a team that begins to look at that looks at the opportunities that are coming, look at how we can derive some benefits in there, and then also create awareness within the society and even within the schools. Because as we sit here and we are talking, many people may not be up to speed with what is happening as far as these conversations are concerned, and we need to begin to create awareness, do some sensitization, engage the key stakeholders. And thankfully we have the seniors like Dr. and Mrs. Martha Jansa Luthrot, who have been at the forefront of the policy issues. I believe the Pharmacy Council has been in the conversation, the FDA have been in the conversation, the Ministry of Trade, and we just need to get a team together that starts that engagement at a very early stage, and also keep the rest of the membership fully informed.
Thank you very much. This will be my last question, then I'll come back to the audience on the FDA score. So you made mention of the PV training program that the FDA does to certify most people. I've seen that there's a condition in the dossier for the KPPV to sign off before they submit. But lately, companies are able to submit the application with their dossiers without the KPPV signing off. That's one thing. I wanted to speak to that one. Then secondly, also, when it comes to the regulatory affairs, can the FDA have a program where they can certify people like they do for the PV experts? Then they can also equally sign on the documents to make them authentic that they have proof read is they've been able to see all the errors before submitting them. Then all this can also create jobs for our people. What do you think?
Yes, so I made mention of the fact that regulatory affairs, yes, we need that, because most of the delays that we even experience still comes from the applicant, the manufacturer, or the person who files an application. Now, we almost always write to them, if you don't submit the module 1, which also includes our application form, and that is where we have included a point where the QPPV has to sign. And so most of them may dodge it, but once we are doing acknowledgement and responses, they are being written to submit the module 1 part, which includes the application. And that is where the QPPV will have to also sign, and then we will be aware of the product that they have filed for registration, and hence, once approval is given, they need to monitor and make sure that the product is very safe on the market and report on. So that is really there. But like I said, the issue of now the QPPVs themselves, with the proprietors paying that amount of money for them to be trained, I think that they want to maybe pull their hands somewhere which is not working, and they have moved from certain companies to others. And those are the issues. We FDA, we don't come in that much because we don't have a hand in that. It will depend on the contract that the person has to sign with the person engaging his or her services. But you realize that most people were sponsored by their proprietors, and therefore it is the duty of the proprietors to ensure that this training that you are going for, at least you are being bonded for the next, because we renew it every 3 years. So if for 3 years, then the person has to serve. And we are saying that once the 3 years is over, it has to be renewed. But it will not be as stringent as the initial person coming in with the training that is organized. Now, if you attend the CPDs that we are talking about, areas which are related to the QPPV work is still taken into consideration. And once you write, it is even accorded you the requisite marks, and then your license is renewed. So it is okay. And like I said, regulatory affairs, we need to push in and make sure that it also comes, so we can even have the universities or other people also training people to be qualified to work in the industry and also release products. We are trying to do that. It's already in the law. Ours is just to implement, and once we get the green light, it will be implemented. We don't want to force or make it mandatory when the resources are not there, and that is the issue. And that's why I'm saying that we need to build their capacity and their willingness to be in there before the opportunity avails itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll come to the audience. We will try and get YPG to do a program for the people to have an interest in regulation.
Mr. Santi, I would like to find out from you that here's a case where somebody spends money for a QPBV person and the person leaves after a year or two. Can't we have a scheme like what happens at the banks? Within our banks, we realize that those are the tellers. They are not actually employees of the bank. People have formed businesses where they train people like that. So if Stanchart wants 5 tellers, they go to such an organization and they rent these employees to them. So I'm thinking of a scheme or situation where a pharmacist owns such a consortium. He's got pharmacists who can be QPVs and file dossiers, etc., etc. And then they are trained, they are always on the job. Because I remember a person like Daniel Marfo. I think he's one of the finest regulatory managers I've ever seen in life. And now he's with Zipline. Now, if you get that consortium of pharmacists to come together who say we will render regulatory affairs on behalf of several companies and they will do the job right, I think that will create some job for some people. They can do things elsewhere, they can do their locums, but then they have the expertise to file the dossiers appropriately. So that was just a suggestion I'm trying to bring across, whether FD will accept such a mode of processing files. Let me come to Mr. Sebeya. You talked about regulation at Pharmacy Council, etc., and you were wondering why you were called probably to be part of this program. But I opened a pharmacy in December 1997 when Sly was the Ashanti region chairperson. Manager. Whether person or manager is still okay, but manager. And I can stand here without any shadow of doubt. He's one of the finest people I've seen in Pharmacy Council. One of the finest. So I am thinking that when it comes to regulation, there are people who are employed at the Pharmacy Council right after school. There must be an ethical check on their character and behavior. Because garbage in, garbage out. Well, salvation may come along the line. Zacchaeus changed. But I'm thinking that the HR of Pharmacy Council, if they are employing, they must bring all kind of aptitude tests, all kind of ethical tests to check the kind of people who come in. For Sly, I can vouch that this was, when he left Ashanti region, people said, oh, we've lost a manager. Why should that be so? So last night, the reason why you are here, maybe is your past testimony is still following you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mine is to Mr. Asante. And I just wanted to ask if you found out why most of the pharmacists who maybe were initially trained as quality persons for pharmacovigilance were leaving their companies. And you also made mention of the fact that this position is being handled or taken by people from allied health sciences. Is there a way that FDA will make it mandatory that any qualified person for pharmacovigilance should be a pharmacist, so as to create job for us and the younger ones, because the pharmacovigilance thing is the new thing now, and everywhere you go is being talked about. So if it's going to be like mandatory that if you want to bring in a qualified person for pharmacovigilance, the person should be a pharmacist, that can also create job for the young ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll let you. Okay, one more before we come to. Okay. So you have the 2 points down, right? Okay, we'll go to Chairman.
Boss talk first.
Hello. I was actually expecting this room to be full. The reason being that I have attended close to about 30 AGMs, for which we've had either the pharmacy board or the pharmacy council on board as main issues for discussion. Mine would not be a question, it would be a contribution. I want all of us to know that regulation is a profession. You have to go through the mill to become a regulator. I started with Pharmacy Board in 1986. And we were two people who were posted to Pharmacy Board, the then Pharmacy Board. Myself and one Patrick Bruce. Patrick Bruce later, he's now a bishop. Patrick Bruce is now a bishop of ICGC, I believe. But then I remained at Pharmacy Board for 10 years. And I can vouch that this is really a profession. It's a calling. You must be strong in regulation. Whether you find yourself at Pharmacy Board, Pharmacy Council, Food and Drugs Authority, Ghana Standards Authority, wherever you find yourself, regulation is tough. And you must be tough. You cannot be pushed around with regulation. So, when, I'm not too sure, CPP becomes the government of the day, and your uncle, who is the General Secretary of CPP, tells you that, yes, now our party is in power, and I want you to be the registrar of Pharmacy Council, turn it down, because you are not in regulation. You have to go through it. It's not a political appointment. Now we are suffering as Pharmacy Council. Why? Because people who are coming in as head of the institutions are being appointed by political persuasions, which is no good for us. It is not happening to Medical and Dental Council. So why us? Let's think through some of these things. FDA, then you appoint a biochemist there. They also qualify, though. But let me tell you, Mr. Ben Botre went through FDA for many years. Pharmacy Council and then to FDA. Mrs. Dakun was working with us at Pharmacy Board. She's gained the experience. Now she's recognized as such as the boss of the FDA wherever she goes. It is a profession. Asante Boateng, when we started, I think you were in industry. You learned through the ropes and listen to him speak. Wealth of knowledge. So I bet you, this is a profession. Don't joke with it. But then I have two things to talk about. And that is the fact that you have to be a regulator to regulate. It's not for nothing at all that we say you are a regulator. It's not happening to Medical and Dental Council. It's not happening to other institutions. So why us? So please, when PSGH calls on you to pay more for advocacy, please consider it so that we can influence government to put the right people at the right places so they will seek our interest. The second thing I want to talk about is about us as pharmacists. When we finish school and we come out and we want to register facilities, During our time, we had about 30% pharmacists owning their own pharmacies. 70% were business people. But we made it a point that we will try as much as possible to get it the other way around. 70% of pharmacists owning their facilities and 30% being proprietors. Our own colleagues disappointed us because we demand that the pharmacists must have majority shares in the businesses, and they are able to go to the Registrar General's department and get it changed as such. Then they become majority shareholders, and they come to us resigning from their own facilities. So we get angry that such pharmacists should be hauled before the disciplinary committee, and they go all over the place, from the chiefs, Manchia Palace, all sorts of places. They come and beg that they made a mistake. They were just going to be superintendent pharmacists. So we do it. When I became the president of the society, I handled not less than 5 of the pharmacists who had just graduated, opened pharmacy shops. You see, one thing about regulation is that if you establish one pharmacy and you say you are resigning from that pharmacy in 1 year, it is your fault. You have brought that pharmacy into being, and you want to punish the regulator in actually making sure that the facility is closed down. This should not happen to us. We are contributors to the problems that the Pharmacy Council is facing. But I insist that pharmacy must be for pharmacists. If we will be truthful with ourselves, it should be for us. We started the 400-meter rule. Why? Because we thought that we should be able to protect ourselves such that one day we become owners of these facilities, and business-wise we'll be able to do well. Now we are competing amongst ourselves in some uncivilized and ways, So please, I'm not Adubre. No, you see, I could have gone to community pharmacy section, but I decided that I'll come here. Why? Because this is where I started from. Regulation is where I started from, and it's so dear to our heart. I think my deputy will be able to speak to it as well.
Thank you very much, moderator and the team. My boss has spoken, so maybe I should not have spoken at all. So I won't go to the Pharmacy Council tangent because he has dealt with it adequately. You are not my boss, so you are Kokwe. You are a Kokwe, but you are not Kokwe. There are two differences between a Kokwe and Kokwe. There's a difference. So thank you very much. I would go the other way around to the product regulation side. And yesterday I was having a chat with Reverend Professor Ansa, and I think it was mentioned just as I came in that the art must begin from somewhere. You don't just plant yourself into it. And therefore, whilst in school, I believe that we need to look at the curriculum now. Yes, the FAMD program here right now is very generic and clinically biased, to be honest. So by the time you come out, everybody is going to hospital. So we might have to look at it and see the possibility of getting people specializing in certain areas or getting interest in certain areas before they leave school. On the other hand, I want to also share the experience where in South Africa, in the University of Cape Town, they have developed a program to support regulation, and it is a postgraduate program for, they call it Medicines Regulation and Innovation, right? And you know what? They are not using, quote, pure academics to teach there. People like Precious Machoso and all, they are the people who are teaching there. People who have been in regulation for years have been brought on board to train, and they are preparing for these vaccines and things. They started about 3 years ago, and they will be turning out people very soon. So these are things that from the academic and training side, we should be coming around to do. Maybe the College of Pharmacists must also be thinking about that. The other thing I want to talk about is what I call the maturity levels, right? Where now we are all gaining, FDA now getting to maturity level 4 and so on. And I ask myself, and I've posed that question to WHO Afro, that when we become a maturity level 4 regulatory authority, how does it affect the last mile? Not only in Ghana, but around Ghana. And I'm saying this because Asante Boateng, you would agree with me that you have done a lot of work in ECOWAS. You have done joint assessments and so on, and they have gone to countries. Now the complaints that are coming, and Mr. Segbeya, Dr. Segbeya, right? You agree with me that after getting all the things done at the ECOWAS level, you go to the country, and it is very difficult for just that decision to license the product becomes a difficult one. Sometimes it can take another 3 years there. How are these Ghana and Nigeria having level 3, level 4? How is it affecting Togo and Benin and Burkina Faso and those around us? When we are getting a lot of medications from these areas, especially the bad ones, especially substances of abuse. The narcotics is also coming, don't worry. So yes, chamol and things are coming from there. What should be done to be able to get to this last mile? Finally, I think Dr. Edusapoku spoke about something like accreditation. Is it possible for FDA to look at accrediting companies that are set up as consultancies or whatever to do some of the capacity building on their behalf? So that I told somebody that I get scared sometimes. There are people like Antimata and Co are here, and myself, my senior. We will all one day go with a certain knowledge. How do we leave that knowledge behind us? You see, people are not interested, and you don't have any opportunity to gather people and train because you don't have any accreditation to do that. Is it possible? I'm thinking of something. And that is why I'm bringing this to the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, shall we take the response? Okay, Antimata. Okay, let me come this way. Okay, thank you very much.
After these colossals have spoken, I don't know what else I will say. But just to, because I have been in policy, I wouldn't have spoken so plainly like TBA had done. I would have said the elephant in the room and maybe the umbrella that is not yet there. You may never can tell. But it is important that our major challenge is governance, especially when it comes to regulation. Let's get it. It is the truth. Especially all the issues we discussed yesterday. The issue about our governance is so wrong. And governance means that the structures and the processes and the resources. And so once we have missed that step, whether at the management level or at the governing board level, once we miss it, we have missed it. Please, let us not debate it. It is a fact. And so let's see how we can re-engineer that. But I don't know how it can be done. But let's see. Yesterday from the discussions, I told the debaters that we should put a paper together. I would not like to do the first draft. Let somebody do the first draft. I will look at the second and the third drafts. And the second point I want to put forward is us as pharmacists. Maybe young pharmacists. Our major problem is, yes, body and soul must come together, and those who work must be paid. But it looks to me that of late, we are not willing to learn. We are not willing to be mentored. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because we put money ahead of the experience. and it is not going to help us. And so I want to urge and I want to plead, especially my young colleagues, that my brother said regulation is a calling. If you don't have that calling and you think that you want to go there to make money, you mess up. And when you mess up, you mess everybody up, big time. And so, two things I have said today: the governance issues, our own self, I mean in terms of attitudes and how we are putting money before profession. I think we should do something about it to help. I'm not saying you should not earn money. You should earn genuine money. But the way we are going is not good. I thank you. You see, you are quiet.
Thank you very much. Antimata, I want to let Mr. Santo-Martin just respond to this one. Then we'll come to you, please. All right, just a second.
You know, it looks like we should just move the high table and go and put it in front there. The four of them, and that's it.
We'll be done. All right, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Piaget, and my boss, Mr. Bembuchi. Mr. Bembuchi actually knows how they have actually brought the FDA up from its inception, when it used to be a board, a lab of a board, and they managed together to get some of us back to also come and contribute our quota. Yes, Chief, you are very right. In fact, about 2 or 3 years ago, we got a group of pharmacists who came to us that they want to do exactly what you have proposed, you and Edusa, and we hailed it. But what we said was that they should put something together for us to sit and discuss and look at the way forward, whether it is actually going to give us the right antidote to what we are also experiencing as challenges to our regulation. They went and never came back, but it is something that is okay. Once something is put together as to, like you rightly said, curricula that will be ushered in for the people to benefit and all that, we agree on then the next steps. That accreditation we can do. I think we even need some labs. We are just that you need, to come up with a lab, the instruments are very expensive and all that. But if we should have a third-party lab, we can inspect and certify it. Prof. Ansa will also bear me out that because we receive certificate of analysis and certain third-party works done by even the universities, including the Center for Scientific Research, we have conducted a lot of inspections there to see what they have and how they do their reporting. So we tell them other parameters they need to include for us to really appreciate and use that in the work that we do. So that is welcomed. If anything of the sort comes up, I think we have sat with a group before, and I think yours will also be considered as such, and that becomes the order of the day. But I think that once we sit to discuss, we need to look at the capacity of the people doing that, and that we certainly know in the curricula, and we can make input and see what will happen after people going through that system. Are they supposed to write a short exam to be accredited or certified or what? But certification, we are open to that, and that is the only way people can have access to get what we want for us as a justification to the work that they do and report on. So, Chief, that one is well taken. Then to Abina, we have not been able to ask why. But then, of course, normally some of these things, like I said, it becomes a contract that a person bringing up the QPPV should. Initially, we said pharmacist. Then moving on, they were not coming. Then our own colleagues started pleading, oh, why don't we allow? They have finished first degree. They have done this certificate course here and there. And so those things are reviewed. Before you are taken on board for that training, we need to review your CV. And that is actually done. So if they have things that can allow them to qualify, Then of course, and this thing we are doing together with the WHO, the KPPV, and so that is done at that level, even though we play almost about 90% of the work that is actually done to train the people. We have not actually found out yet, but I can tell you that with certain meetings we have had with some of them, because they have formed an association, and because of whatever we want them to do for us, we have incorporated or revised our application form to include a portion for them to be aware that such a product is being filed. That one we have done, and it is actually initially mandatory, and so it will still be based on, if we all agree that we should make it mandatory, it is already there, just that the people are not coming. But we are insisting for the companies to also have the QPPV, so that year in, year out, we conduct our inspection to see what they have also gathered. And mind you, we are still using the professional pharmacists at the institutional contact levels in the hospitals, where they collate data on adverse drug events and all that and report to us. We have extended that to the community pharmacies as well, and there we are still using our colleague pharmacists who do all that for us. So it is welcomed, we can say that, but it is there already, just that our people are not actually coming. But from what you have said, we'll try and find out whether maybe they wanted some pairs that is bigger than what the people could offer, and of course why the people also did not allow them to sign a contract based upon which they will use to at least move their discussions and all that forward. Then that becomes a problem. Thank you.
Did you have some? I wanted to make a comment.
Please, they've stopped the registration because people just want to register and then leave. So that's why it's not still come. Okay. So I went to see them. They realized that we are the multidisciplinary group. Yeah, so all of you, please stay till we finish. I've seen two people come in. Stay till we finish. So we are the only group who are going to actually have our.
Right. Okay.
I'll come this way.
I would like to talk from the angle of the young pharmacists. When I finished school, I went to Pharmacy Council in June to make an inquiry about when we are starting the internship. It was Thursday, and I was asked to start on Monday. Meanwhile, we knew that internship was to be in September, but I was just looking for the actual date. I started on Monday, did the placement for my own colleagues. After that, and between June and September, I was paid 80 cedis a month, whilst my colleagues were making some money from the community. After the exams, I continued at Pharmacy Council for another 1 year for 80 cedis a month, 8 to 5 p.m. every day at ETD. Then, after the elections, Mr. PSGH became the president, and I was recommended to society as a project manager. Even though at society at that time, I was still making less than what my colleagues were making. I'm saying this when Auntie Martha spoke about the money. From my experience at society, when Mr. Bonboche came into power, HEFRA needed a consultant in helping them develop some policies, and I was recommended because I've gained experience from council through society, and I'm now at HEFRA as head of special units in charge of policy and projects. I want to say that when I tried contacting young pharmacists for position, the first question, it's not about where is the pharmacy, Obetu are saying. The money has always been the problem. When pharmacy says they are not getting job, I'm a bit surprised, because even last week we advertised a pharmacist needed to superintend them. When they call, it's not they being available to work. It's about my license. Nobema me saying, are you ready to work? Oh, me pelu kumbia yo baby. So the idea that there is no job for the fraternity, I believe is not true, because there is opportunities on our platform every day, people looking for pharmacists. And our seniors have said, there are opportunities there. The people coming, I don't know if to be in the profession is to make money or there is another motive. But it looks as if it's not to practice. Back in 2017, Pharmacy Council wanted to start active enforcement to ensure that the pharmacy stays at the facility. It was pharmacists who went to beg through the society that we should allow pharmacists working in other places to superintend their own facilities because they will be there. We did a nationwide monitoring. Out of over 400 facilities across the country, just about 30% were going to their own facilities. They don't go. So this discussion, I still see the problem of pharmacy as being created by pharmacists, and then we turn around and act like we have no idea what is happening. It is time that we are serious, and then disciplinary actions taken to ensure that pharmacists are going to the facilities, they are providing the pharmaceutical care. This morning I was at CPPA, the new proposal, pharmacists doing counseling, pharmacists charging professional service. And my first question is exploitation. We will not be there, but we will still want to charge that money. We will tell them, see, eventually we will exploit that area and it will become another thing. Then we will turn around and say that we are exploiting us. So please, colleagues, let's have a final solution to our problems by changing our own attitudes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pablo. All right, I'll come to you, please. Hello, I'll come to you. Let's do 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, mine is by way of a suggestion to the FDA. I believe if we want to make the pharmacovigilance business something exclusive for pharmacists, then we need to look at channeling the training to the universities. I'm saying this because as we speak, those of us who have had experience with PharmD, there is a pharmacovigilance model. And so if FDA can collaborate with the faculties, and then you have this done at the faculty level, you would not have a situation where allied science or chemistry or biological science students or professionals want to also become pharmacovigilance experts or persons. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right, you.
Yeah. This I think we need to understand why probably we didn't get most of our colleagues here. We have the wrong perception about regulation. Probably our colleagues do not feel compelled to come here because over the years we've been talking about regulation. Most of the things, the topics have been about regulation. But as the special one will say, is TAC. So that, I'm sure that is why we didn't get most of our colleagues here. But if you look at it critically, regulation is the tool to what we will expand the job opportunities. Listening to Mr. Boateng on FDA, you can see that if we are able to engineer our laws and policies, we will open a lot of doors for our young ones. I read the Public Health Act, and there is a section which says that to manufacture medicines, you need a pharmacist or somebody who has some experience in that related area. And that is a very, very big problem. The clause saying that somebody in a related area. The reason I'm saying it's a big problem is that since we started the PharmD, we've left industry like that. And these universities, those who have foresight, they have quickly picked on, especially the technical universities. They have set up schools of pharmaceutical sciences, and when you go there, they are training people to come out as pharmaceutical scientists in bachelor's degree and master's degree, and it's happening in Sunyani Technical University, all the way straight up to master's level. So what's going to happen? We will capitalize on the laws, which says that to manufacture medicines, you need either a pharmacist or somebody related experience. And here I'm moving straight to the PSGH. What are we doing about it? The PSGH is a whole colossus on its own, a strong interest group. So why would we sit down for politics to infiltrate into appointments to certain key positions? Well, we have come, we've done our part. Mr. TBA and the rest of us who were on SEC, we've done our part. But for those of us, I'm sure Mr. Kwabena Asante is positioning himself. So I'm just trying to let him know when he comes, he should try and make sure that we continue from where we left off. We shouldn't just leave things for them to go like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I had a lot of bashing from the left wing. They always, if I want to strangle me dead, let me just take 2 or 3 from this side, please, and then we will come back. Okay, from you, then I'll go to lawyer.
Thank you for considering our interest. I want to make a point as a young pharmacist who has gone through mentorship and think that I'm now good enough to start my own pharmacy business. The encouragement is for me to move into the hinterlands where my services may be needed most. I get to the place, getting a store to start the business, one, is a problem. If you are lucky and you get one, you go to Pharmacy Council with your application, it takes so many months for them to even do the first inspection of the store. Only for them to come in and tell you your dimension is not up to the 36 meters squared, it's left with about some 2 meters B. So it's rejected. Already the payment has been done. When that thing is gone through and you get another store, after the first inspection, it takes another 6 months or so for approval to be given. In all these instances, the month will be counting against you as a young pharmacist. So I'm pleading, is there anything that can be done for those of us who want to operate from the hinterlands with regards to the dimensions of the store, one, and then fast tracking the process in approval of our submissions? That is my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lawyer, before we move to our panel.
Thank you very much, Chairman and panelists. I think I will start from my colleague's last comment that in a rapidly evolving world, so many things are happening at a very fast pace. Globalization and digitalization is changing everything by the second. Our profession has identified, at least in the last 10 years, that our life depends on regulation. Regulating training, regulating house job, regulating practice, regulating facilities, regulating medicines. It is our oxygen. One, does the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana have the muscle, the strategic muscle, to make effective input into how the profession is regulated? Slowly, since 1992, there has been an unconscious politicization of institutions, state and parastate. The idea is to give the executive and or the political elite greater power and control than if even professional bodies. And so at every opportunity, in moving from Act 489 to Act 857, some of us thought that the end was that where you have a representative nominated by the professional body will become a representative nominated by the minister. And that day there, both sides of the major political divide agreed that we need to rather have the minister do it than the professional body do it. So like Uncle Tom said, slowly, as we know that it is being politicized, if as a society we don't go to the gym to pay more advocacy fee, to build our advocacy muscle, to make sure that we safeguard our profession, politicization will take it from bad to worse and we will suffer. But once we compromise regulation, very soon it is 5. The privates haven't started coming in, only Central. But when they come in, you need only 1 year and there will be 40 schools of pharmacy, just 1 year. And people will have it in their bedrooms, in their sitting rooms, and they will all start producing pharmacists. At the last check, when I was leaving Legon, there was 1 law faculty in Ghana, University of Ghana. Today, there are about 29. And the Wahala has fallen now on the law school to bear the brunt of determining whether 3,000 lawyers can come out every year, because those days Legon will bring his pass list and 100% all of them go to law school. Today, there are about 29 schools. About 20 plus are private law schools. So if we don't build our political muscle to have a say in our profession's regulation, we will be eaten up very, very slowly. So that is my prayer, that regulatory governance in the council, appointment onto the council, appointment inside the council, structures in the council, policies, practices, outcomes in the authority, FDA, and the council must be certain, predictable, driven by clear governance imperatives that we can comfortably say that the council is independent. All that Pablo said, that our attitudes here, it will always be human attitudes. It will require a reward for doing good and a punishment for doing bad to put everybody in their shops. Otherwise, if I can make money in the bank and still have 2 shops run in absentia, anybody will be tempted to go for it. But if there's a cost to do that, which I cannot bear, I'll close it and concentrate on my work in the bank. So I think PSGH's political muscle to be able to say that what is going on in the FDA, if any, we don't like, and these are our steps to remedy it, or what is going on in the council we don't like, and this is our ability to remedy it. Until we reach there, we'll talk keke and delete. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A very shocking revelation I got when I got here was that the current first year batch for UDS doing pharmacy are almost 300. A year before, they were 150. So what happened over 1 year? And how many of our colleagues are here to impart the knowledge and the skills? Even Central is struggling. I mean, no offense anyway, but it's a really a very big question. So I'll come to you, our experts, to give your final comments, and then we will call in our sponsors to come and give us a short message, please.
Okay, thank you very much. It's obvious that the issues regarding regulation, you cannot exhaust the discussion in a day. I would say that lawyer Ernest Osuabuaji has beautifully summarized the critical issues that need to be looked at we have a challenge as a profession, and we must acknowledge it. As my brother said here, we are part of the problem, and then the system is seeking to rapidly swallow us up. And if we do not take pragmatic steps to address the gaps we have identified, it's just a matter of time. We will be a fizzled out profession. Now, the scriptures say something that muzzle not the ox that treaded the corn. I think that I'll come back to the point of regulators and their remuneration. It's something you cannot walk away from. I mean, when I joined the council, I was talked to by a senior colleague, and I thought this would be a beautiful way of starting your career. I worked at the council for 8 years. When I was leaving the council, I was taking the equivalent of $250 as my monthly remuneration. The job I moved on to paid me twice as much. It's not as though $500 is any big money to talk about. Now, so after 8 years, I was a senior inspecting pharmacist, and that was my reward. Now, when our regulatory institutions become autonomous, they would then have the power to pay our regulatory officers very well and don't rule out the influence of money. My brother, I don't know how you survived on 80 cedis a month. I mean, even if you paid 80 cedis a week, it would be very difficult to survive, you know. So, I mean, you are one out of a million who would stay on a job on an allowance like that. But many of us went through situations like that. And I don't think it's ideal for a regulator. And Senior Bembocho and Co, you have been in that space, and you know that indeed is a very unfriendly and a dangerous situation to put a regulatory officer in. You expose him to the risk of compromise and being corrupted. And you're dealing with an institution where a lot of money moves around and people want things done as quickly as possible, whether it's right or wrong, and they're ready to influence anybody. So it's important that you protect the officers that are ensuring the profession is well governed. So I will highlight that as part of the advocacy issues, because I think that autonomy is critical. It might not be a simple journey, but as society, we need to focus on how we are going to free up our regulatory institutions. HEFRA, Pharmacy Council, FDA, NHIA. I mean, we're all paying towards NHIA, but if just a portion of the revenue is going into reimbursing institutions that are putting in claims, we can't continue to have people that are reimbursed 6 to 8 months after they put in their claims. And I mean, take what has happened this year to the CD. If you put in a claim in January and you're getting paid in August, you've lost almost half of your money just because the CD has depreciated. So there are things we need to protect our regulatory institutions, and I think that the society has a critical role to play. Number two, I didn't talk about the membership of the council and all of that, but the council's membership has been a long-standing debate. The president of the society is represented on the council. There are schools of thought that think that the president should not be on the council. Others think he should be there. Bottom line, the council should be sufficiently empowered to ensure that what it is mandated to do, it can do it without fear or favor. If it is prescribing curricula for institutions to train our upcoming pharmacists, we should be sure that we are matching up to international standards. We should be sure that we are producing pharmacists that are abreast with knowledge within industry, and we should be sure that the council should ensure that institutions training pharmacists are very much in touch with what pertains on the ground, be it community practice, hospital practice, and unfortunately, we have a great PharmD program, but there's a significant skew, and my colleague talked about it. We need to begin to look at all the dimensions of pharmacy practice, or all fields of practice that pharmacists will go into when they step out of school. Some of us currently do public health. There's no specialization in public health for pharmacists, and we don't even seem to be recognized by the society, and that is unfortunate. But that needs to be institutionalized, and we need to create the necessary recognition for the different fields of specialization that pharmacists need to get into to face the rapidly evolving world. And I'm glad our keynote speaker yesterday highlighted issues on artificial intelligence, technology, e-pharmacy, and all of those. Those are the realities we are confronted with. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we may not be busy talking about over-the-counter medicine vendors, because pharmacy practice may have moved online. We may have to be discussing issues regarding how we're going to ensure patients are correctly counseled if you are delivering their medication to them by zipline or any other form of drone that we may be using. And you want to be sure that you're still protecting the patient and protecting yourself as a professional, because now we have lawyers, pharmacists who have become lawyers. In some jurisdictions, we have people walking up and down the corridors of hospitals just looking for errors health professionals have committed, so they can be sued. And people have lost their licensure as a result of that. We need to begin to look at these things critically. For now, people may walk away with prescriptions that have been wrongly dispensed, even wrongly written. The pharmacist didn't see it. Probably he was not there. Paracetamol was served in place of paracetam, and all of that, we need to begin to look at strengthening regulation. As I said, there's a lot that needs to be talked about when it comes to the council. We need to strengthen the council to deliver on its mandate. The details, I think we've touched on in different dimensions, and I would just say that as a society, our voice needs to become stronger to highlight the issues that concern the people within the practice. And I just highlighted the findings of my survey to show that there are concerns that people have. They have made recommendations. I will actually package those details and pass it on to the conveners of this meeting, so that those become advocacy tools, in addition to some of the conversations that we've had here this afternoon, to be able to secure the future of our profession and to strengthen regulation so that new job opportunities can be taken advantage of. Because as a pharmacist, there are 1,000,001 things we can do to earn a living, but we also want to be sure that our profession is sufficiently protected and well regulated so that the future looks bright for those that are coming up. Thank you very much.
So we'll take a final words and then we'll hand over to the chairman.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Yes, so I will briefly touch on the concern of one of our colleagues about the handing over the QPPV training to the universities. Yes, what I will say is that I will go with what Mr. Butcher said, that if we relook at the curriculum that is being run to ensure that all other sectors or areas where pharmacists can work are well structured, at that point we can decide to take it there. Then we know that people who have been trained in certain areas, including the QPPV, will be coming into the industry where we want them to be. But now, if it is part of this general thing that people are trained to go to hospitals to work, or clinical pharmacies, and we are going to give QPPV, it may not land in the areas that we want. And so I will still plead that we leave it where it is. Let us rather think about accrediting people who have the capacity to help in those who have just finished, to groom them to take up those opportunities. That will be fine until such a time that is done. Then, of course, with the Public Health Act, if you ask Mr. Butchie and Mr. Piaget, they will tell you it is not easy for some of these laws to be passed. And if you are not careful, the law will even be shut down before it even gets there. Now, you have it defined in a certain way as per best practices. It is difficult for you to go and say that exclusive for just pharmacists for now. It will be shut down immediately. Now, like I said initially, if you look at the WHO recommendation for people who can work in the industry, they need to have certain number of years experience in the area, and those people are really qualified. Initially, I mentioned that FDA, we have even food scientists and all other people. It is just that once they are employed, they are taken to the regulatory function where their capacity is best fitted. And that is what is there. If you go and limit it, I can tell you, some time ago, just like Lawyer Boaji has said, the politician wanted to open a pharmacy somewhere. I think he went to Kumasi, certain things were done. You need a pharmacist to do this, that. And then they went together, talked together. Why is it that only a pharmacist should open a shop? They will not agree. And these are some of the challenges that are there. Now, let us build our front for people to get the interest to do. Then when we are doing any other thing, it can be done. With the current structure, it is mandatory for pharmacists. They are not coming, and therefore certainly you have to fall on other professions. So, right, okay, yes. So with all what has been discussed, I think one of our guys said that he doesn't believe it, and it goes with what was said yesterday, that you have a 5-story building and people are just crowded down there. And he has made that understand that at least there are the opportunities, just that people may not be willing to be in certain areas. But I think that regulation has been well structured. We will continue to do more to see how best people can be put in areas where we are regulating and they need to actually be. But if they don't have the interest, it will be extra difficult for our own colleagues who are also running certain type of industry or business to also move forward with what they are doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our resource persons, we will take a final comment from you, the chairman.
Thank you. So mine will be short. And I want to thank our panelists so much for the preparation and information they've given and the interactions that have come from the floor. But just to reflect on a couple of things. So Mr. Thomas Boateng PhD made the point that regulation is a profession. So somebody is called a regulator. But I brought my attention to something. Most of the time when we talk about our pharmacy council, we are thinking about people like Mr. Ameni Dankwa or some of the people that we know, our regional branches and all that. But actually, the pharmacy council is the council, right? Now, so, TV, your point is, if we think about your point, it is possible that at certain times, the entire council will not have one person who is a regulator on it. Because, I mean, the chairperson, there's the description, the chairperson is not required to be a regulator. The person who becomes president of PSGH, who represents as may not be a regulator necessarily. There's a lawyer on there. And now because the registrar is appointed by the president, it can be anybody that the government likes appointed there who may not necessarily be a regulator but heads there. So it's possible that the entire council will sit and there's nobody who is a professional regulator on there, right? So you would think that the registrar will bring that expertise there, but if he's not a regulator, that's it. And if the entire council doesn't have a regulator on there, then it's possible that some of the things we are talking about here that we think regulations should fit, they don't even understand it. They can't appreciate it. They don't even know how that can be done. And so that will be a problem. So perhaps we may have to rethink, and I'm thinking about that because of the point that you made. We may have to even think about the composition of the council itself. Because if the council doesn't provide the leadership, the rest of the people there, no matter how much they desire it, they may not be able to do it. Then there was the question about whether the PSGH has the political capability or the capability to be able to influence political decisions. Well, I think that it may not be institutionalized, but we can have that capability. You know, the PSGH fortunately has people who are in all sorts of areas, who have the necessary reach to be able to enable us influence the kind of decisions that we are looking for. If I look at this room, for example, the decision, for example, that allowed us to, or that made the MOH take the decision to allow us to do antigen testing in our facilities. In that conversation, the Minister for Health was there, the Director General Ghana Health Service was there, there were some people from other public health and other people were there. And when the conversation, and I was there, and then our EM2 was there, and as the conversation went on, it was like they were having a separate conversation from what we were talking about, and almost concluding that they didn't think it was the case. Then Auntie Martha and then Mimi Dako, who were also in the meeting, spoke, you know, favorably in our cause, and the conversation changed immediately in our favor. So imagine that Auntie Martha, Auntie Mimi, TBA, Mr. Boche, all these people are legendary public sector workers. They know how the things work, they know the language to speak and all that. We need to have a system that enables them, or people like that, to be able to work on behalf of the society in that regard. And they called on us to be able to, you know, make the advocacy contributions good enough so that we can be able to support them to be able to do that. Because whether we like it or not, that advocacy is important. The kind of things we have been told, and please, I don't have any evidence to prove this, but we've been told that some of the decisions that council takes, for example, the reluctance to stop MTA program, OTCMS programs and all that, it is because those institutions perhaps indirectly have strong advocacy ability to be able to get the council to act the way they act. So we cannot be different from there, from that. So maybe in the future when we are asking you to help us with advocacy, please let us come on board and be able to do that. And then the last thing is what Ernest said about people there's human nature. No matter how well we intention that we are, people will always want to do the wrong thing. And there must be consequences to that. Now there's a dilemma. I chair the disciplinary committee of the society. And sometimes the question is, or some of our colleagues say that, oh, you know, the society should not be the body to punish its members. We should rather be the body to protect our members. Makes a lot of sense. You know, so we shouldn't give up the people and all that. But also, if we also don't act in ways that prevent certain wrongful actions from going on, it will always continue to be there. I mean, I believe in certain, if on 2 or 3 occasions, or the pharmacy council, not disabled by the society, has actually punished, and forgive me for saying this, maybe like Frankumi said, in the future I might spoil my political chances, but if the council has gone and then actually punished or withdrawn the lines of 3, 4, 5 pharmacies continuously, it's announced, for this reason we have withdrawn this person, now we have withdrawn this person, I'm sure that there will be a profession. People will begin to do what they have to do. If they came to a pharmacy and then on 2 occasions there's no pharmacy, it was there in the morning, in the afternoon, or vice versa, and they close it and shut it down, and then give a license to another entity to start people will begin to do what the right things are, and we as a people must be supported. If we come and then we speak against those things and we and then the wrong things to be done. So I think that as much as we are calling on the institutions to do what they have to do, we must be willing to take the consequences of the only way that we can move forward. So we've taken note of all the things that have been we'll act on. Next year when we come, we would have solved all our Pharmacy Council problems, and we'll be talking about something else again. So thank you all very much for staying. We will take our sponsors presentation. Let me say something about that. I was chairing AGM. When we are planning AGM, let me be truthful to you on something. The AGM component of our dues is like altogether maybe 300,000 Ghana cedi. The AGM every year costs us not less than 1.2 million Ghana cedi. And the planning committee has to find that money to do the AGM for us. And we do that through things like this sponsorship, that the ladies come to. But we don't have time to listen to them. So I'm begging you, don't leave yet. Just endure the presentation, even if it's not nice. Just endure it, smile, be happy, clap for them, and then let them finish. So that next year when we go, they can give us money again for us to come and have our AGM. Okay, I beg you. So please, shall we put our hands together for her as she comes to me?
Point of correction, this is a scientific presentation. I'm not a sponsor. No. Thank you very much. This was enlightening. My name is Helena. I'm a pharmacist at Kolebu Teaching Hospital. I have an MPH from the University of Nottingham in the UK. We did something on the WHO treat all policy. So this is just a short presentation on what we discovered at the Kolebu Polyclinic. Okay, so this is going to be a brief presentation. We just want to explain what we did, what we found, and what the way forward is. So I don't want to bore you with the statistics. We all know HIV prevalence in Ghana is currently around 1.6, sorry. Globally, we have 37.7 million people living with HIV. I think recently we heard about the number of HIV positive people increasing. So even though people seem to have forgotten, HIV is still an epidemic, but because of the ARTs, people have become a bit relaxed, because even if they get it, they will take the medicines and nobody will know. So this is what happened before we started our intervention. Kolebu Teaching Hospital has both the primary care, which is the polyclinic where I work, and the main is quaternary care. So somewhere in May 2019, they did a simple analysis and realized that when patients are diagnosed with HIV at the polyclinic, they do not follow up with the referral to the main to collect their antiretroviral therapy. So, pointer. Yes. Okay. So the first graph has both the Kolebu main hospital and the polyclinic, which is the primary care. You realize that we tested over 1,600 people, and those who went into care was about 71%. But if you take only Kolebu, the main Kolebu, it had 86% people getting into care. But the polyclinic had only 25%. So when we refer them to go for the ARTs, they do not get there. So based on this, the hospital decided that the polyclinic should start giving ARTs at our facility. So we did a series of training for all staff, doctors, nurses, and pharmacists, and we started providing ART services in July 2019. So this is just to analyze what we've done so far and to see if we've made an impact. So we just wanted to find out whether the treat all policy, which started in 2019, was working, and those are our objectives. So it was just a simple cross-sectional study. Like my boss always said, research should not be complicated. So wherever we find ourselves, we should always try and showcase our work. Pharmacists do so much, but when it comes to writing up, we get a bit scared. People think research is something big. It's not. You can sit in your small corner and whatever you are doing, showcase it so that they know how hard we work. Okay, so I had 2 pharmacists helping me to collect the data. Unfortunately, we are still using folders for ART patients, so we had to collect all the folders and extract the data from there. So it's mainly summary statistics, and this is the main finding. So from July to, I just broke it down into years, but in summary, we had tested over 4,000 patients. Our positivity rate was 14.7, which is rather high, but there are reasons for that. But those in treatment went up from 25% in 2019 to 57.8. So there's been a significant improvement in that. There are some other statistics. There were more females than males. Majority of them were single, which we should think about it. What's going to happen? They are also going to look for partners. They're going to get married. So HIV affects everybody. So we should still go out there and spread the word, because right now it seems the emphasis is off HIV. COVID has taken all the money. So as professionals, we should still go ahead. The main issue was with the viral load testing. The WHO target states that we should have 95% of patients being target not detected. Unfortunately, the facilities for testing are not the best. So we only had 70 viral load test results out of the 349 patients we are treating. That's mainly because the machine breaks down and most of them cannot afford to do it in private facilities, which is rather expensive. And out of the 70, we only had 28 being target not detected. So in total, our WHO targets, the first one we couldn't do the calculation, but the second was 58 out of 95. And the third was only 8% out of 95. So we concluded that even though there's an improvement in linkage into treatment, we still have a ways to go in order to meet the 95, 95, 95 target set by the WHO. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our MC will give us a vote of thanks and then we'll be out of here. Latifa.
Hello. Well, thank you very much for that very inspiring presentation. And also, I'd like to first thank the Almighty God for taking us through this presentation. Questions? Should I close the program? Okay. Well, I'd like to first thank the Almighty God for taking us through this presentation and this session. I hope everyone learned something from it. Mr. Chairman, thank you for taking time off your busy schedules to come here and take us through the sessions. To our speakers, thank you very much. To the audience, the media team, everyone who made time to show up to make this session a success. Thank you very much.
Okay, please. So the machine is available. We will need to have our thumbprints taken. The young man at the back. Can we please see your hand, please, Chairman? Yes, please. Oh, okay. I'm the only person. Okay. All right. Announcement, please.
Hello, can I have your attention for a few announcements, please? We are going to have the pre-drama cocktail party at the forecourt of the library block right here, after which we'll move to the main auditorium for the drama night. Thank you very much.